Hello, friends. Hello, family, loved ones, loves, dreamers, fools, dream weavers, creators, artists of our lives that we are and that we can be and we can choose to be, become more conscious of the ways that we're operating and creating and manifesting. Yeah, energy, love, time in and through our lives. And those themes are been coming up for me. They're huge for me right now in this reordering, resetting, reprioritizing, reevaluating, changing my own mind because we're the only ones that can change our minds. Our minds are for us to change. Our minds are for us to unwind and remind. Our minds are for us to, yeah, remind. So, that being said, yeah, I wanted to share some things about my alchemy process and my healing process that I've been digesting, sorting through, assimilating, um, yeah, forgiving, releasing, witnessing, observing, participating, um, yeah, choosing for myself, making my choices, and choosing to be accountable to inform myself. Looking at my relationships this year and the things that weren't working out for me and the things that weren't very clear, and facing my fears and owning like my part in playing in certain stories and willing to look deeply into those, willing to let them go, willing to just allow them to be, allow me to be, allow all things to be, so I could work with it, see into it, play with it, and release it and change my own mind. And that's a big part of it. To changing and growing and expanding and letting go of the familiar, letting go of the control, letting go of the agendas and the need to fix things or smooth them over or make them comfortable. Or, yeah, cling to attachments, to identities and old ways of being, old ways of operating unconsciously or even consciously. Um, Being willing to see what I haven't seen, being willing to see all I need to see for my true well being, for my accountability. And yeah, shaking some of that shit up. And it doesn't always feel very great, and it kind of feels scary sometimes, but it is liberating. And so some of that is embracing the mess and being willing to get messy, even though we have an aversion to the mess. I mean, I know I do. And I have been, like, yeah, repelled by the mess. And sometimes it's, yeah, that's part of my avoidance and my resistance to getting messy or to being more authentic about how I feel, about what I really need to say, about, yeah, expressing what I really need, expressing what I really see, and claiming that energy and expressing it freely. Yeah, with, of course, consideration and restraint, and practicing discernment, like, and yeah, willingness to just own my mistakes and my strengths. So, all those things, yeah, we need all of those things. So, let's claim it and let's be it and let's free it. So, the mess, yeah, wanting to smooth things over, wanting to make it comfortable, wanting things to be all right, thinking that if I just tried a little harder, it'll be all right. And it's like a form of self sacrifice in a lot of ways where we got to kind of choose unconsciously or consciously to go against ourselves or what we're really feeling or what we really need because we feel like there's some kind of expectation or obligation Or there's a belief that props up certain stories of who we think we are and who we think we need to be. And yeah, in order to belong or to be accepted or to be enough or to be worthy and all those things. And so, yeah, can't really see some of that stuff if we don't, yeah, embrace the mess and dive into the mess and know that the mess is part of it. And yeah, sometimes it's really uncomfortable and it can be really muddy too, and it can be really confusing to step into and to own. And so, yeah, that's sometimes part of our resistance to it, is not liking it and not like, yeah, feeling comfortable, so we avoid it. Or we want to, yeah, just disown it and call it someone else's because it's easier to see on the outside of us what's been created and who, and sometimes like that victim judge mentality or that lens of the judge and the victim that we're trained and conditioned to view through, that like, yeah, totally skews and distorts our view. And that's okay. But yeah, just be willing to view and see another point of view, see another perspective, and see another way. And so, yeah, I know where my aversion to the mess comes from. And yeah, it's an old survival strategy too, as well. And I could give an example of like of avoidance and repellence to an external mess, like to the external messes that we create in a lot of ways through all this junk and shit that we don't need. And that like also can be a reflection of this internal junk and shit that we carry that we think we need. But really, we can forgive it and release it and be free. We can free ourselves from all the stories, all the myths and lies that no longer align with who we really are and who we really choose and need to be for ourselves and through our lives. And so when I, yeah, was a kid, and to this day, my mom has been like a hoarder and, yeah, a pack rat and holds on to all sorts of things. And yeah, when I was a kid, yeah, I guess I didn't know anything different. But like when I was a teenager and when I got older, I realized that sometimes I had like an OCD thing to like clean and to like make sure like my space was tidied up. And yeah, it was one of my go-to things to help me relieve stress or to help me like recenter, to help me feel better too, was just to clean up my space, because that helped me like realize that I had some control over things. Um, but like that when it came to like my space, my own space. And yeah, so yeah, when things are chaotic and when there's like so much clutter around, it doesn't feel good for me. Yeah, in those ways. And it's like, I got to do something with it. I got to, yeah, clear some space and make some room and like have some order, you know, and like so I can relax and I can feel like at ease and whatnot. And so, yeah, that's like a really, that's not a bad thing at all. Like to want to take care of my space and attend to my space and things. And I have found a little more balance in that as I've grown older and lived through certain experiences and gained wisdom through those experiences. But yeah, it's just kind of funny looking at them in multi-dimensional ways, or just energetic and physical and mental and emotional, all of that. What kind of messes we have to clean up or to work with or to play with or to play in and to grow through. And yeah, or to let go of, you know. And so, yeah, sometimes we can overcorrect things, and yeah, well, we just get to learn like through that opposite side of things. And that's like the cool thing about duality and polarity too, is like, yeah, we get to experience both extremes if we choose. And yeah, and sometimes we only realize certain things about it with hindsight, with the gift of hindsight. But sometimes we can suspend and surrender our beliefs about certain things, and we receive the gift of deeper insight as well. And so, yeah, it's kind of interesting the way things play out. But it's been a year for, yeah, re-evaluating things and re-evaluating things and seeing what is most important to us and where we can show up and where we've been putting our energy, where we've been neglecting our energy or dishonoring our energy, or where we haven't been directing it consciously or using it wisely or honoring or respecting it, and yeah, those kinds of things. Because yeah, just old programs, old beliefs, old habits, old ways of being, old ways of seeing, perceiving, believing, and everything that we think, we know. So a lot of it, the ego plays the star in the show, and the ego is silly and yeah, fools itself. We fool ourselves all the time, and that's part of trickster coyote medicine too, like believing, yeah, that we can control things and that we can make it all right. And it's just silly how we trip ourselves up, and we trick ourselves all the time. But yeah, so I have coyote card here, and yeah, coyote is one of my totems to help me remember, to lighten up and just like give it up, and yeah, just laugh it up, laugh at myself, and yeah, lighten it up, because it's okay, really. Like, yeah, sometimes we make it harder for ourselves when we take ourselves and our roles and our image so personally and so seriously. And so, yeah, just to lighten it up and to know and to remember that we play all these parts in our lives, in and through our lives, in and through our relationships, and then we judge them as wrong and right. And so we set up a lot of mind traps for ourselves and a lot of pits for ourselves to fall into. And that's okay too. It's just recognizing that and becoming aware of all that and owning it, owning our choices, our actions, our behavior, and our parts that we've played, and like forgiving ourselves and just being willing to acknowledge the things that we really do need and the things that we really do value, and reprioritizing and resetting and reminding ourselves, and also seeing what agreements we have had with ourselves or with others in our lives, and realigning those agreements, or reformulating or renegotiating those agreements, so that we can live our best, true, and full life. And sometimes that means shaking things up and separating and splitting apart, and that can be painful too. And so, if we have an old pattern that we've been playing into and being played through, the energy's been going in that direction for a very long time, and there's momentum there because that's the pattern the energy has taken on, the form that it wants to create, because it's been going in that direction and been regenerating like those ways. So sometimes when there's a pattern interrupt or when there's a change, yeah, there can be resistance, and there can be like pain brought on by that resistance, or discomfort, because it's no longer going in the same way that we're used to or familiar with or that we know. And so certain little snags and pop quizzes can come up to test us. Or sometimes it's like almost like the energy has a life of its own, and it wants to pop up and defend itself because it wants to keep going in the same direction. So there are certain things and certain blocks that come into play. And also like the ego that's bargaining, like the ego that wants to maintain that false sense of control, that doesn't want to experience loss or the discomfort or the pain or, yeah, any of that from this change. And that's why sometimes we sabotage ourselves and or just things come up to help us shift, and dissolve those old patterns. But it can go either way. Sometimes it's just up to our abilities to respond and to let go sometimes of the need to fix it, the need to control, the need to defend it. And yeah, just letting them play themselves out. And that's where the observer, or like observing and letting go, comes in as well. And so there's a lot of potency in that. And yeah, I've been integrating some things and letting go of old things. And a couple weeks ago, when I went through my old papers, and just things from the last 25 years or longer, than that, like I realized like certain things that I was holding on to, and I wondered, like, in certain ways why. I knew like why I had saved some things, but other things it was like, okay, I can let go of this now. I'm ready to let go of this now, and I'm ready to receive the gift that it has for me and let the rest go now. And yeah, that's part of like the integration process is sorting through what we can release and be thankful for, and what we can totally release and let go of, and to make the new space for. And that is its own process, and it's different for all of us, but I'm sure some of it, like, we can totally relate to what we kind of experience and go through during those times of change and those changes. And sometimes it is like a separation and a severing and a splitting apart, so that we can come back together in new ways, and we can form that new whole, and regenerate things that are more aligned with how we've grown and what we now know. So it's not easy, like breaking apart and splitting apart and owning our parts. And so one of the things that I found when I was going through my like old things and old papers was an old notebook, and it was from a class that I chose to take after I split up with my first husband. It was a class that I was drawn to, and it was something that was very helpful for me to help me understand some of my feelings and help me move on, help me move past some of the things that were very painful to me, and so that I could understand my own process and where I had given my power away and what I was choosing for myself now, to live again and to start a new life, a new chapter of my life. But first, there were some things I got to attend to and look at and look into before I could honestly forgive and move forward. And the class was called Surviving Relationship Loss. And it was taught by two counselors, a man and a woman. And it was based off of a book, like some of the exercises and things, which I might, actually try and find, because it was super helpful and illuminating and enlightening, like some of the things that we got to realize for ourselves, participating and choosing to do some of these writing exercises. And I know it opened my eyes a lot, and it did really help me to have that group support, and meeting every single week for about, I don't know if it was a 6-week course, but it was, I think it was meeting once a week and having like some homework to do, a writing exercise. And it was super, super helpful and eye-opening and very therapeutic. But this little exercise, this was from, let's see, one of the weeks, and it was called Rituals for Parting, a Personal Workshop. And the book was Coming Apart: Why Relationships End and How to Live Through the Ending of Yours by Daphne Rose Kingma. And exercise 2, I guess this was from the second week. And so I will just share a little bit of this. This is an exercise of telling the real story. We all have a particular mythology that we tell ourselves about every romance we get into. That's the love story. The story in which the original meeting is fated and magical, in which we fall in love, and in which we assume we will live happily ever after. The love story embodies the illusion, romance, and hope part of any romantic relationship, whether or not that relationship eventually manages to be translated into a long-term relationship. As we have seen by looking more closely at what is actually going on in our relationships, we discover there is another reality which is simultaneously occurring, the developmental process. Exercise 2 is designed to help you discover the developmental process that was operating in your relationship. And so there was a couple of different questions for consideration. I'm not going to read all of them, but I'll read it goes from A through G. A was write what was going on in your life when the relationship began. What were you and your partner each trying to accomplish when you met? Were you starting a business, wanting to have children, trying to get a graduate degree? B, talk also about where you were in terms of relationship status. Were you waiting for a new relationship, or were you in the middle of another love affair? And so there's a few more things. And then the letter F says, if the story of your relationship was written as a novel or made into a movie, what would it be called? What would the title be? Examples: Great Expectations, or Two Ships That Should Have Passed in the Night, or The Year of Living Dangerously, or Too Many Gins and Tonics. I thought that was funny. G, what was the real reason your relationship ended? This reason has to do with the completion of your developmental task. What did you complete, and what did your partner complete? What task did your partner complete? So, yeah, I thought this was pretty cool. And most of the people that attended it, they were breaking up from a romantic relationship. They were splitting apart, or coming to be supported because of a romantic relationship that had fallen apart. And it was offered through community education at a high school or something. It was a night class, and so I'm super glad that I showed up for that, and that it was offered, and I showed up for it. And yeah, there was, I think, 1 or 2 people that came because they had a lifelong friendship that had ended. And even though it wasn't a romantic relationship, there was still a lot of love invested into it. And it's very hard sometimes when we break up from our lovers, or experience the loss of friendship. And so, I feel like there's a lot of us that can relate this year about friendships, relationships with family, relationships or partnerships that have ended, or that have changed and are no longer the same. So, some of the external changes and circumstances kind of helped us see certain patterns or certain things or certain ways that are no longer working for us, or that just really are asking to be changed or to be seen or to be acknowledged, so that they can be dissolved or shifted into a more empowering relationship that works for two. And not just, because sometimes it's, we need to see certain things, where things aren't working for us anymore. And sometimes it's not pleasant, and it's not pleasing, and it's not comfortable. And sometimes we want to cling to what we know, or cling to the old, because it feels safe and it feels comfortable. But staying in our comfort zones doesn't always serve us. And in fact, it can deplete our energy. It can drain us. It can just really smother the new life that wants to grow and wants to be expressed through us. because we keep clinging to what we know. Um, and I think all of us have felt like certain things, and um, kind of recognize certain signs, but sometimes we don't want to see them, or we ignore them, or we neglect them, or we deny that, or we reject those signs. And then all of a sudden, it's like the tower collapses, and it's like now it's a reality. Like we're rock bottom. And yeah, because sometimes we just like want to sweep stuff under the rug because we want to keep certain things going, or we don't want to take accountability for our own stuff. And yeah, sometimes that can be painful because we're trying to avoid pain, but then it's inevitable sometimes that we need to go through like that change. And sometimes that change is painful, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel comfortable. And yeah, we experience a lot of pain. And so I know from my past, my experiences, that I would wait till something got really, really bad in order for me to like cut the cord or cut the ties and be able to leave, to walk away. And then I realized this year that I don't need to keep doing that. I don't need to wait until it becomes super, super painful or super obvious that it's not working for me. Like, and some of that was like martyr, like the martyr, like, oh, I need to because like this person needs me, or like I need to sacrifice myself so I can get my needs met, or yeah, just some of those stories. Or I can do this. I have the time, I have the energy, I have the resources, but then really selling my own needs short, or selling me short, selling out my power and my choices because I wanted to caregive. That's the shadow caregiver. Like, so I could feel right, and I could feel like, oh, I'm doing something that's right. And really neglecting my own needs, and not listening to like my inner child and my soul, and like what my body needs, and the time that I really do need for me, and the room that I need. Yeah, the space that I need. Honoring my energy, honoring my resources, and what I want to create like for myself. And but it was kind of, I needed to see that in certain ways, like, or I would get sucked into like others needs, or others ways, so that there was always some kind of a payoff for my small self-image, um, whether that was like, okay, I feel good about this because I'm helping, and that does feel good, and I like to do that. But like sometimes it's like we don't see how we're sabotaging ourselves in certain ways when we're always like the giver, or when we always like excuse another's behavior, or just reinforce their story. Okay, like, and then we don't see how we're playing into it and being played in certain ways. And so yeah, it's just good to look at some of those old beliefs, some of those old agreements that we've made consciously or unconsciously, and yeah, just seeing the truth about what actually is, seeing the reality, and not like the idealized version of ourselves or our story or our relationship, seeing what it really is, and seeing what it's really creating, or what's been created like through playing in it. And so yeah, that's not always comfortable, and it's not always easy to look at, and it's not easy to let go of sometimes, like our old ways of operating, like needing to fix it, or needing to rescue someone, or avoiding our own stuff so we don't have to face our own fears, or confront what we need to address, and own and acknowledge our own feelings. Sacrificial lamb, like the martyr, and all of that kind of old programming, old beliefs, implanted ideas, descriptions, stories, myths. So yeah, that's interesting. that it says we all have a particular mythology that we tell ourselves about every romance. I think that could also be said about every friendship or every relationship that we do have. And yeah, we do have a particular mythology and different stories and history and all of that that kind of clouds and distorts our perceptions about what it really is. So, and about where we really fit into it and how we play into it. And yeah, and it's hard to sometimes face the ending and get some good closure in certain ways. So sometimes we do need to take our own space and detach and get our own distance so that we can suspend, surrender, make room and space to be able to see more clearly or understand what we really need. And so that's where boundaries come in. And then like allowing ourselves that space and that time and that detachment and that break from like that continual energy like that we're perpetuating or playing into or recycling through in those dynamics and those patterns in and through like our different relationships. So there was a couple different relationships that I had been participating in, and that came up to show me some things about me and where I wasn't honoring my own energy and where I was giving my power away and how I was doing it so that I could kind of fool myself, protect myself, and avoid my true intimacy needs like that I needed for me. And I realized too, like, yeah, the thing that I wanted the most, I was afraid of the most. And so it was like, but I want it, but keep it at arm's length. Like, so like that was part of the push and pull dynamic. And I saw how it had been created internally and how those same patterns manifested on the outside and externally showed up and played in, out and through some of these relationships. It was super interesting to see. And so with the gift of hindsight, yeah, there's more clarity and I can see like what I hadn't seen before. And yeah, through like being able to let go and look at certain things from the past and certain old beliefs and certain old stories and operating ways of being, like how like certain things manifested or were created through like some of these shadow aspects, like the shadow caregiver and the martyr and the miser, and like where I was being a miser to myself and where I didn't have time for myself. Yeah. Or yeah, certain things like that. And that was to avoid intimacy. And then I was always focused on the lack of intimacy. And that was recreating the same story or reinforcing the same story. And through like those attachments to those stories, to the identity the identities that the ego kind of has a part in playing in for that control and for that safety and security, because it's what we know and that the comfort zone. Yeah, the judge, victim, hero, monster that we know. And we're all those players. And it's like, yeah, that's why we don't see things as they really are. We see them as we are. And it's just kind of funny until the illusion clears and we see ourselves and what is as it really is and as we really are. So it's pretty funny. And yeah, so I have learned a lot about how I've contributed and created like certain relationships in my life that weren't working for me anymore, and what I got to choose for myself to make room for me. Because in some of my relationships, there just wasn't room for me to show up and to be allowed to be all of me. And yeah, so I got to look at those things, like where am I disallowing me? Because if I feel like I'm totally disallowed, yeah, in this relationship, there's no room for me. And I was like wondering, why are there these one-way streets when it's always on this person's terms and it's always about them, and my feelings aren't considered and my feelings aren't acknowledged and my needs aren't being met, and it's like, what's that about? And so I got to do some investigating and some excavating and some digging into it to see why. Yeah. What is the payoff here, and why am I continuing this, and why am I allowing this? Or what's being asked of me? What do I really need to allow for me? And what can I let go of, and what can I release, and what can I forgive, and yeah, what can I free for me? And all those things. And so that's what I got to choose, and I got to look into, and I got to see where I'd been fooling myself, and where, yeah, I'd been hiding, or where I'd been playing a fool, playing myself into being fooled. Yeah, playing at being the fool. And that's right too. So yeah, I got to see some things about like some of my expectations, and where some of my resentments were coming from, because I hadn't acknowledged certain feelings, and started to see that like months and months ago, like in the summertime, where I was like, okay, like this is coming up for a reason here, and I'm thanks for the lesson, and for like the opportunity to respond to this, and to really see what I need for me, and also know that it's okay for me to choose space, and for me to make room for me. And that's what I started doing in a lot of different ways, when I realized certain things weren't working, and they weren't a good use or a wise use of my energy and what I wanted to create. And so yeah, I got to be responsible for that, and take accountability for that, and own my accountability for that, and choose like to be free, choose to be love for me, choose to be true to me, and to forgive myself, and to forgive others, and to let them be, and to let it be, to let it show me what I needed to see. So yeah, with clarity, and just practicing showing up for it, allowing like, yeah, the mess of it, allowing it to be uncomfortable, letting go of the need to be liked, or to please another, to please myself, to be pleased, and reinforce like that caregiver, people pleaser, saint identity. And I didn't ever want to be the asshole in the story, so I'd go against me, and I would ignore my feelings, and then there would be resentments that would come up later. And so, yeah, but really what I needed to see for me was, yeah, how I was creating my own pain, suffering, isolation, where I'd been ignoring like my own needs and certain aspects of myself in order to stay in my comfort zone and please, or be pleasing, or like just, yeah, stay with what I knew, or with what I thought I knew. And I got a whole bunch of gold, but it was being willing to own the shit first, yeah, remembering certain things, like that this is a play, and that our relationships like are really great reflections and mirrors for us to see into ourselves. And yeah, to see how those patterns play out. It is really interesting on the collective and personal level. And so working with my dreams really helped me see a lot of different things, and a lot of different patterns and themes, and helped me with my waking dreams, and with all that was coming up, through different lenses, and through different stories, and through different attachments, yeah, to these old ways of operating and being. And like, it's like how we see ourselves, and the world, and our place in it. And yeah, sometimes we cling to that, to those old beliefs. And yeah, it creates a lot of distortions. We don't see things very clearly sometimes. And so sometimes the darkness, yeah, um, gets to be brought into the lights, yeah, to make it conscious. And that's what we get to choose. And so, yeah, working with some different things this year and seeing like how like it was uncomfortable for me to continue to put energy into like something that wasn't working for me, but it also felt uncomfortable to keep going along with it or I thought I needed to just try harder for a long time. Like, I just need to try harder. And then once they know that I'm worthy, or once they see like what I'm offering and the worth is seen, or, like these kind of machinations and mechanisms of the ego mind, like the ego likes to bargain and to maintain or sustain like a false sense of control. And yeah, that's why sometimes we beat our head against the wall and we're just like, why isn't this working? Because we just think through sheer will, or like we can convince, or we can fix it, or yeah, maybe we trick ourselves for a little while where things feel better for a little while, but then it kind of just is really the same pattern that we're going into, and then it comes up again and it bothers us, and then we put like a temporary band-aid or like a little fix on it or for it, and it's still going the same way, and it's not working for us, it's working against us. And it's just one of those things where we get to see that, and we get to acknowledge like these old patterns, and they come up through different relationships. Even if we cut and run and avoid it and we don't address things, like they'll come up through another one, like because it's the same patterns that want to play out, and until we shift them, like it's our creation, like. And it's just funny how they will pop up in our lives until we attend to them, or until we attend to ourselves and the energy that we've been using against ourselves, or to keep ourselves small or unconscious of the patterns that we're playing in and through and out. It's silly. It is silly. So that's like why we get to laugh at ourselves, and we get to laugh at the story that we're playing in. We get to laugh at each other sometimes, because it is fucking ridiculous, you know? So I have this soul collage here that's one of my, lighten the fuck up cards. I don't know if you can see it, but yeah, here we go. So, yeah, there's a picture of an ostrich on it, and out of the ostrich's bum is a donkey's head. So there's an ass coming out of an ass. And then this weird guy who has on this strange artistic themed costume, I'm sure from Burning Man or some such event. And a happy Tibetan woman just laughing and enjoying life, and so just like childlike. And then there's a big penis bong. And so what I got from this was like, yeah, it's just funny, like pretending we're not an ass that's emerging from another ass. And it's just like humor can help us lighten up and like free that energy and harness and direct that energy and that vitality, and can raise us up. Big old erection coming up. And yeah, just laugh at ourselves and enjoy it, and not take ourselves so seriously, and just be goofballs, and create through like all of these ways instead of rejecting and denying them. Like, just be uber ridiculous, because it's ridiculous sometimes. And then also like the bat wings behind this guy's head is just like a little message from bat medicine. And also like, yeah, the hanged man hanging upside down and turning it all around. And then the ostrich and the donkey too, like have their own medicine. And ostrich And ostrich feathers are interesting too. Ostrich feathers are symmetrical, or they're the same. And the bird doesn't fly. It's a bird that yeah, stays grounded. And so like, yeah, that's very helpful too, to be grounded and rooted so that we can rise. And the ostrich feathers are associated with Mot, or Mat, goddess of truth, and like the scales, yeah, of balance and all of that. And then, yeah, just the donkey is a hard worker and, yeah, can have a mind of its own, though. And, yeah, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, the ass. Yeah, so it's okay to be an ass. Yeah, let's just laugh. So that's what I get from, some of what I get from that card there. And just lighten up and enjoy and have fun and just be love, and yeah, let go of certain things that we can't be or that we shouldn't be, or that, yeah, our fears, like sometimes what we fear is like the worst thing. Once we face it, it's just like, oh, like it doesn't have any power over us anymore. Like, and we can be like diverting or subverting, yeah, a lot of energy by not addressing or facing our fears. And like, if we can just laugh about them too, and that it can help us confront and face them and just let go of some of our ego machinations, or who we think we're supposed to be. Like, sometimes that's like one of our biggest blocks, because yeah, we have like a lot of pride that's hard to swallow sometimes, or like this illusion of who we think we are, and then it kind of hurts to see the truth sometimes about like, oh yeah, and that's okay too, like where we've been wrong, and where we fooled ourselves, and where we've been played, or where we played at being like something else, and that's okay. Like, just like be willing to see it, and then forgive it and release it and meet it, you know, because it is a gift and an opportunity to see the truth and to see like, yeah, things for what they really are. And it's just like our judgments about them that cause us suffering, or our judgments about like how we were so wrong, or and then feeling like guilty or ashamed because maybe we caused harm. And that is like something, yeah, to look into and to forgive ourselves for, something that we can forgive ourselves for, and forgive each other for. Because, yeah, forgive them, for they know not what they do, and forgive ourselves, for we didn't know what we were doing either. And so it's like, we've all been there, and we've all been fooled, and we've all played fools, and it's okay. Like, yeah, just wake up to the truth. And one thing that I wrote today, yes, the truth can help to set us free, but first it may piss us off royally, because it stings sometimes, like having the illusion shatter, or, yeah, and having the tower crash down. And because our ego thought it was running the show and was bargaining with all of these pieces and what we think we know, like, yeah, it can be a very rude awakening, like very rude indeed. And so, yeah, have compassion for that rude awakening. And sometimes, like, yeah, where it does feel like a rude wake up call indeed. And, but like, yeah, it's necessary sometimes, like to really be able to see the truth and to know the truth and to confront that truth. Yeah, even though it hurts like a lot, but it's an opportunity for us to show up more fully for ourselves and more authentically in true, full, whole ways. And yeah, sometimes the tower needs to collapse first, and we need to face our pain that we've ignored and that we've disowned and that we've rejected and denied. And so, yeah, there is a lot of hard breakups this year. And yeah, sometimes those occur in our mind first, or sometimes, yeah, our mind needs to catch up to, like, and accept what is. And sometimes we go through those stages of grief, the 7 stages of grief, which is like shock and denial, and like anger and blame and bargaining and all of that, like, until we do move into like an acceptance, into more of an acceptance, and then start to rebuild, like from the ashes, or yeah, are reborn, yeah, from that, yeah, from that tower collapse. And so there was, yeah, some things that I learned about being the shadow caregiver, and about playing the people pleaser and the peacemaker and the martyr and the good girl, and yeah, the one that was right, to be worthy or enough, or worthy enough to be included or to belong, or to, yeah, to be loved, and all of that. And then I realized certain things, like, where am I not allowing myself? Where am I fooling myself? What am I rejecting in myself? What am I denying in myself? Where am I punishing myself? Where have I abandoned myself? Where have I not showed up for myself? Because yeah, if my needs aren't getting met, like, it's either it's time to ask for what I need and renegotiate certain agreements, or see what relationships aren't really serving me, and what's taking more of my energy than than I'm really bargaining for, that I'm, yeah, really willing to keep continuing. And yeah, where am I giving my power away, and all of those things, like, and so it's good to look at those things, what we get to reclaim, and what we get to reframe and rename for ourselves, and what we get to allow for ourselves. And is it just to, are we playing in it? Do we keep playing in it to just prop up our own false image, or is there some kind of payoff to where we're really protecting ourselves, or yeah, keeping ourselves in the same story, so we don't have to take accountability or change, because there's some kind of comfort in staying the same, but it's not working for us. And yeah, we just kind of manipulate ourselves, because that's what we learn to do, like manipulate our feelings, like alter different moods, and distract ourselves and keep ourselves busy, and from not like looking at these things, and or addressing or confronting or feeling what we need to feel, or acknowledging, like, yeah, what's really being asked of us, or what's being presented and offered to us. Sometimes it's hard to see those things because of the distortions and what we believe, what we choose to believe, or what we unconsciously believe about ourselves and the relationship, the appearance of things. So I wrote, distortions are hard to see into until we do. And then the illusion is cleared, and then things are seen as they appear, or they're seen for all that they are, seen for what they are, and we see them as they really are. So questions and healthy skepticism, presence and willingness, an open heart and an open mind, humility, wonder, awe, and curiosity. Suspension, surrender the ego mind, the hanged man and bat medicine, giving up the ego binds of the mind, and where we've been so deaf, dumb, and blind. So be and unwind, let go and remind, be willing to change our minds, be willing to change our minds, our beliefs, our stories, our myths, and our lies. To look into them deeply and see beyond the appearance of the programming of these slavery binds. These preconceived notions, assumptions, descriptions, attachments, wounded lenses, false identities, false images, false perception, beliefs that have been implanted or unconsciously accepted and agreed upon. Yeah, own and honor our own abilities, own our own BS and our part and our power to change. Yeah, our bullshit is part of our own power to change, so let's claim it and own our own bullshit. So yeah, that's what we get to do. So we can keep blaming others and ourselves or our external circumstances and stay the slave victim. Or we can choose to see where we've given our power away to something outside of us and clear the illusion away and own our own ability to respond and create. Yeah, what are we creating? What are we choosing? What are we choosing for ourselves? What choices have we seen? What choices are we willing to be accountable for? What choices can we let go of or forgive? And what choices do we have now? What choices do we have that we may have not seen? And so there's a lot of questions. So what parts of ourselves are we denying, judging, rejecting, neglecting, and excluding or shaming, punishing, abandoning, disowning, or possessing, reinforcing, propping up, clinging to, or smothering? Where can we forgive ourselves? Where can we show up for ourselves? What can we reclaim for ourselves? What can we choose to own for ourselves? What can we choose to be for ourselves? What can we choose so we can be love for ourselves? What can we include and rename for ourselves? What can we be and free for ourselves? What can we honor and release so we can be for ourselves? What can we invite, dream, create for ourselves? What can we offer, contribute, give, and receive for ourselves? What can we bring forth and allow for ourselves? What can we own and acknowledge for ourselves? What can we change to be our full selves? What can we let go of to be at one with ourselves? So let's look at our identities, our attachments, our stories, our myths, our beliefs, images, assumptions, addictions, and strategies. Let's look at our expectations, our resentments. Who are we blaming and why? Our old constructs, old patterns, old ways of operating. What are we avoiding or escaping or distracting ourselves from by keeping busy? So what are we defending so that we can keep pretending, keep fixing, manipulating, controlling, or pleasing, and deceiving ourselves? So yeah, those are good things to look at. So there was a few things that I got to look at in certain ways, and yeah, it was good for me, and it was hard for me in the summertime when I realized, this doesn't feel good for me anymore, and I don't like this, and I don't want to keep doing this anymore. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel true for me. And so, there was a lot of things that I got to look at through different relationships, and there were 3 main relationships that were causing me a lot of pain because of certain expectations and certain resentments and certain unacknowledged feelings and ways of operating that I was playing and contributing and perpetuating. And so I got to look and see what I got to choose for me and how I could show up for me. If it didn't feel I was allowed in the relationship, there was no space, there was no room, there was no time for me, or there was no consideration or room for my feelings and my own experience. What was that about, and what could that show me about my different relationships and how I was showing up in them? And so I got to see a lot about that, through a relationship with a friend, through a relationship with a sister, and through a relationship with a teacher. And so those were all great because it was around the same themes of being worthy or being enough or being too much. Being not enough or too much. And how I manipulated myself into believing some of these stories or fooling myself into I'm showing up this way, I'm giving this to you. Why is it so much for me to ask to receive a little something from you, and that was the story. And it was just where I had not acknowledged my own self or listened to what I really needed, and where I had denied and neglected my own needs and my own self. So I really needed to see that. And it was interesting how one of those things played out a couple days ago, seeing through the underbelly and seeing in a very like impersonal way, or just in a detached way, where I could observe it and I could see through it and see what was really being asked. And also, yeah, seeing what little parts of this little play rubbed me the wrong way. Um, like some of it just rolled off my back because I already knew it wasn't like my garbage and it wasn't my toxicity, and it was a wounded lens. It was a wounded child speaking. It was a victim mentality, and it really wasn't about me, but it was like being projected and directed at me. And if I was to agree to that emotional garbage, then yeah, I'd get sucked into that story and waste my energy, or not being, honoring of like what I really needed for me. And what I needed for me was space, and it was like boundaries that I was setting for me, and it was my choice for me. And yeah, I had expressed certain things and they weren't seen in certain ways fully. But yeah, it's okay too, because it wasn't my job to fix it or to, yeah, make the other person see, hear, or understand, because it was like no matter what I said, it was they were going to see it in their own ways, like anyways. And it was just something like that I didn't have to control, defend, or manipulate. Like it just got to be what it was and what it is, and what it, yeah, just is what it is. And yeah, it wasn't my job to fix anymore, or to make comfortable. And yeah, just letting go of making it comfortable for myself too, because my go-to thing was, oh, I want to fix this and I want to make it better and I want to make it more comfortable. But it really, that's not serving me. And that's my old strategies. So just let it be and let it go for now, because like I've already said what I needed to say. And like, yeah, I'm just going to let it play out through its own way. And respond when I need to. And yeah, so I did choose to respond later, not right away, because it just, yeah, felt like something that, yeah, wasn't mine. And it was just like, wow, this isn't mine to carry. This isn't my baggage. This isn't my stuff here. This isn't like, yeah, I don't need to agree to this or accept it or receive it. But like, yeah, I did later feel like I got to respond. And yeah, and that's what I got to choose for me. So it was an interesting interaction, and there was reaction, definitely. And that's when I found that little poem by Corey Lynn about the 7 stages of grief, and about how reaction is everything. And can we like feel like certain things like anger and maybe hostility, but also at the same time meet it with love, and understand like, yeah, that it's our reaction or our response. um, and we can choose love, and we can choose detachment. Yeah, and we can observe certain things and know like what's not personal or what's not ours to carry. And we can see things as they really are, and respond to that, like what's being asked. And so, yeah, what was being asked of me was to honor my energy and to honor my feelings and to honor what I'm choosing for me, what I'm choosing to participate and create and contribute to. And so I got to do that, to be accountable for me. And yeah, and letting go of judgments, or like other people, how they're going to see me or how they're going to cast me in the play. And it's okay. So like, I'm okay if I'm the asshole right now. That's what I get to be, for you and for me. Like, and I'm not going to reject that part of myself. I'll embrace the asshole, and I'll know that she's right to be, and she's a part of the play. So it's not going to be a control mechanism or a way for my ego to control me anymore, or for someone else's agendas. Like and they won't be able to use it to exploit me or to get under my skin anymore. If I accept those different parts of me, then like I can love all of me, and I can own all of me, and I can include all of me. And it's not up to me like to make the other person happy or complete. It's their job. It's their job to change their own mind. It's their job to take care of themselves. It's their job to take their own responsibility. It's their job to show up for themselves. It's their job, and like, to own themselves and to own their own mess and their own power to create and their own bullshit and their own freedom and responsibility. And yeah, I don't need to agree to anything that's not true for me, or anything that feels um, like hostility, like misdirected blame and hostility. Like, yeah, I can say thank you, but no thank you. That's not mine. And that's like the differentiation and the discernment and the discrimination that I got to practice because of those, yeah, different relationships and those different patterns. And so, yeah, I thank and bless and praise like the lessons and the patterns that were playing out, so that I could learn these lessons and I could be able to see what is more true for me and what I want to choose and create, because of my love and devotion to who I am and to like all we are, remembering who we are. So that's a big part of it. And acknowledging like certain things where I used to feel guilty about feeling certain feelings, but then like really, okay, what is this feeling really showing me here? Instead of like getting sucked into the story of, yeah, of they need me and I need to be this way for them. And it's just like, no, I don't need to do that anymore. And that's like going to be hard maybe, because it's not going to be pleasing. And yeah, but like really things need to change. So yeah, and that's hard sometimes when we feel like we fit in a certain way, or yeah, we're worthy only in a certain way, or there's only one right way, or there's one way of being, which is totally false and it's bullshit. So it's been good. It was good for me to like do all this forgiving in the last couple of weeks, and then remembering too that I free all to find their own ways. I free all to do their own work. I free all to claim their own gifts. I free all to claim their own sight. I free all to live their own lives. I free all to shine their own light. I free all to learn their own lessons. I free all to free themselves and know and remember all they are, all we are, all thou art. I free